Good afternoon. Good afternoon. My name is Antoinette Brown, and I'm here from the JD TAM team, which today we're going to be discussing business certifications that recommended business certifications for IT professionals. And this is to basically kind of go over here are some certs that are out there that as IT professionals we should look at, not just only at the tech certification, but the business certification that can be a huge plus to your success in the IT world. So let us begin the presentation. If you have any questions, please post your questions in the YouTube chat. We do have someone that is monitoring the chat, so you could post your questions there, and we'll do our best to answer those in real time. So let's get ready to start this presentation, and let's kick this off. Okay, so again, my name is Antoinette Brown, and I will be discussing with you today in regards to business certifications for the IT professional. So let me give you a little background about myself and why we decided to go down this route. So let's start with the objectives of this discussion. We'll talk a little bit about myself. We'll talk about business decision, personal benefits, type of certifications that are out there, such as the PMP, which is a professional management, project management professional, the ITL, Lean Six Sigma, and change management. So for me, let's say about 5-6 years ago in my journey as an IT professional, as I began to see the landscape change, I came to the realization that being an IT is just not about the technical components, but it's also about the soft skills, the business skills that you are going to need to make certain decisions and determine the type of applications that you will bring in-house, basically, to your IT department, to your business, what is going to make your business successful, and so forth. So one of the trends that I started to see was that we needed, as IT professionals, to understand how our business functioned. What were the strategic goals of the organization? How the organization determined their strategic goals? And how do you take all that information and then basically put it into one? So what I did, I took the long route. I decided to go back to school and got my master's in technology management, then followed up with that in earning another master's, basically in healthcare administration with a focus on informatics. Then additionally to that, I started to pursue some of the business certifications that were out there, such as the PMP, Certified Scrum Master, and also attaining my Lean Six Sigma Green Belt. And along with that, also taking additional classes that can booster my career as a whole, not just as a technician, but also a person that understood the business. So how does this all play into being an IT professional? Well, let's talk about business decision. So when you're making a decision from an IT perspective, you cannot only look at the technical component of it, because technology is not only it. Technology is not just a driving force. What you also have to understand is, what are the needs of your organization? What is the vision? What is the strategy? And what is the goal? Because these things are going to come together to help you determine, how do you help your organization to move forward? Or how do you go about identifying the right tools that are going to help your organization to get to that strategic goal that they have in mind? So I'll give you an example here. So a few years back, the organization that I worked for determined that we needed to figure out, from a healthcare perspective, how do we keep all our clients in-house? We basically had different application systems that we use for various programs. And what we wanted to do was, how do we take one patient from one system and basically determine if they could go to another system? So this part of the first component of this, the business decision or the strategic goal overall, is how do we keep our patient in-house utilizing all the business programs that we had? So with that saying, we basically had to think, okay, before we get to the technology part, we had to understand the business focus. So when you understand the business focus of the organization, that component is going to help you determine the right tools you're going to need. And additionally to that, it's going to help you to understand your organization and the need. So when you're having conversation with your senior executive team, when you're having a conversation with the day-to-day person that uses those various type of applications, you understand their workflow, it helps you to gain knowledge of what your organization is looking for in general. So overall, you got to think about it from a business perspective. One, it is not about the technology only. Second, you have to understand in the organization strategy, vision, and mission. What is the organization going to do? Second, thirdly, when you have identified the right tool, it also gives you a different perspective of how the business operates. So it's not just saying, okay, I'm going to decide that I want to expand the IT department and introduce Cisco switches, or I want to introduce various new platforms, but is how do you take that technology and basically leverage it with your business needs? The next part that you also have to look at is, how does business certificate help you personally as an individual? One, it increases your knowledge and your skill set, meaning that your knowledge and skill set goes beyond just your technical component. Now you basically have a knowledge set how to understand business, doing business analysis. You understand how to work with your team members. You understand how to work with your customers that are outside of your normal circle within the IT component. It also helps you to understand your industry. I would say one of the greatest value that I have acquired in obtaining, different type of business certification is understanding truly how my industry function. Working in the healthcare industry has so many components to it. But when I'm able to sit with a nurse and have a conversation with a nurse, trying to figure out what their needs are, and basically because I understand the business itself, I'm able to take that new knowledge that I have and say, okay, what tools can I look at to make sure that whatever I acquire fits into how the organization workflow or the organization process may work. Second, the thing that we have to look at, it has a potential of increase in salary. It is not a guarantee, but there are organizations that will look at their employees when they see that they go out, earn new skill set that also add value to the organization itself. It is also a plus when you decide to leave your organization and go to another organization. Not only do they see that you have that technical skill set, but they will also see that you have a business skill set. When you put those two together, it is such an awesome component that can really match in with each other. Second, it gives you a competitive advantage. We are living in a period and working in a period now where technology is rapidly changing. It is constantly changing. So it's not so more now learning the skill sets of those technology, but it's also how do you take those skill set and basically apply it to the change in the industry of your industry growth. So it gives you a little leverage over your counterparts, those that may only have those technical background, but have not seek to understand the business component also. Another thing that we have to look at is increase in productivity. These skill sets give you a different angle, a different view on how you can get things done, how you can basically increase efficiency, how you can go about in completing a project as quickly as possible. So you always have to think in a fast time the fast period that we're in now, things are constantly changing. How can you be productive? How can you be efficient? So these are just a couple of things I just want to highlight to you when it comes to the business aspect of business certification. Is how does it help your organization to grow? How does it help your organization to get to their vision? How does it help them to get to their goal? How do they meet the strategic demands that is set by the board or set by your leaders? And then it also makes you also think about the personal benefits. How do you increase your knowledge set? How do you help with competitive advantages? And how do you increase in productivity? So now we're going to transition and start to take a look at a few of these certifications that are out there and how overall that you can put them together. So the types of certification that I want to put together is one, you have what we call the Certified Associate Project Management, and you also have the Project Management Professional known as PMP. You have the ITEL Foundation. You have the Lean Six Sigma and Change Management. And I'm going to say to you, these are not just the only business certifications that are out there, but we just wanted to pinpoint these to you so you could understand that these are some of the ones that are out there and that are highly recognized. The one that I actually left for last was change management, because change management is actually something that is pretty much it's new. It's coming out there now. And as I said, as technology is changing, organizations are trying to figure out ways to basically apply change in their organization at a very rapid pace. So we want to take a look at the numbers. So ZipRecruit basically did a survey around just to see what were some of the top skills that were basically mentioned in a job description. And what I found very interesting with this breakdown of this survey is that project management actually had a great number. We had like about 31.6% basically of jobs that were basically saying, if we will take you, we're going to take you if you had some type of project management skills. And then followed by that, we found that the technical skills followed after. So just looking at this graph alone kind of tells you something here that yes, we need the technical skills, but there are also other skill sets that are needed. Because if you really think about it, you may have a technical skill. You decide that you need to deploy a firewall in 300 buildings that you have new firewalls that need to come up. You have 300 buildings that this transition needs to occur in. And you basically, how do you get all these firewalls installed in your building, right? So it's going to take some planning. It's going to take, how do you work with your organization during downtime? How do you make sure that there's not a lot of business interruption during this process? So you'll see that this is very important that we understand a certain aspect of what we're doing. And what I also want to point out too is that when you're looking for jobs at times, one of the things that you should really do is read the job description. The job description will give you some highlight of what is required for the job outside of the technical skills that you may have. Okay, so let's dig a little bit deeper in this, and let's start to talk about the project management perspective. All right, so project management. The Project Management Institute have, they've done a wonderful job. And as a person that is a certified project manager, I must say the project management skill set is one that is basically essential to helping you with pretty much any project that you have to implement. It doesn't matter what industry you're in. You could be in healthcare, you could be in marketing, you could be in government. It does not matter what industry you're in. The project management certification is definitely something that is needed. And the purpose basically of this certification, it helps individually effectively implement projects and manage its customers. Okay, that is the main focus. How do I get this project implemented in a reasonable time, get it implemented within budget if your organization is budget constrained? How do you keep your stakeholders, who are your customers? How do you manage your stakeholders? And that could be both your external and internal stakeholders. How do you manage that senior leader that decides that this project needs to be finished in 2 months when you have determined that the implementation of this project may take 4 months, right? So that is one of the purpose of this. Then the next thing that the PMP does, it helps you to define requirements and deliveries, okay? So what is the requirement of your project? What are you expected to deliver at the end of the project, right? So one of the ways that you have to look at this, and I always say, is that you cannot have a project that has no end date, right? And you cannot have a project that has no deliverables and it has no requirements. So what do we mean by that? So let's, for example, I decided that we'll take a house, right? I've decided that I've purchased this house and I have a plot of land and I'm going to build on that plot of land. So on that plot of land, I'm going to have a specific set of requirements. My requirements is that I'm going to want a 2-story house. That house let's say, have 3 bedrooms. It must have 2.5 bathrooms, right? I will need a large kitchen. So those are just prime examples of what your requirements are. I'm just not going to build this house with nothing specifically. I have a requirement. So in the business world, when you're thinking about implementing something, the question is, what is the requirement? What is the reason for implementing this application? What are the requirements you need to implement the application? Does the application run in a cloud environment? Does the application requires you to build a server? Does the application require you to have some type of redundancy? Does the application require you to use multi-factor authentication to log in? So basically, what the framework helps you to do is take those requirements and you begin to lay out those requirements and say, okay, these are the requirements. Based upon how long it takes, you put delivery dates to those requirements. At the end of putting all your tasks together, the end of the day, you have what your deliveries are, and you have your delivery dates also. So, what's interesting also, it's another thing that typically will happen is you may have senior management come to you and say, I have this application, I need it installed, I need it set up, right? And that's the gist of it. And most of the times what happens, sometimes we do the implementation, and the senior management person will come back and say to you, well, this is not what I wanted. Did we take the time to understand what the requirements were, what the stakeholders required? A third component of dealing with the PMP is that the PMP uses 3 components today. If those of you that may have been familiar with PMP prior to 2021, PMP basically functioned off what we call the waterfall method, okay? And what the waterfall method basically was, you initiate, you plan, you execute, and monitor and control, and then you close, right? So with how the industries are changing today and the rapid change of technology, one of the things that PMP started to introduce was a whole concept of agile, right? And basically saying that agile allows you to do continuous incremental improvements. So what this allowed you to do is take components of the project, break it down into small components, and you basically release certain parts of the project piece by piece, piece by piece, piece by piece. And the agile component is really good because what it allows you to do, if it's something that you're implementing for the very first time, you have this new software, you have never touched the software before, you don't understand how the software works, the agile component will help you to do that implementation in piece by piece and allow you to basically get to your goal. Compared to the waterfall method, where you had to plan basically everything from start to finish, right? And in planning something from start to finish using the waterfall method can be a bit difficult at times, especially when you do not understand something that you are getting ready to implement. This is something new. Typically, we say that the waterfall method should be used when you're implementing a project that you have done before. So you have some idea of how the process will typically work. You have some idea of what risk that may occur. You have some idea basically of what to look for, what should not occur based upon past projects you have done in this same area. Then another component that the PMP introduced along with Agile is hybrid. And the hybrid component is basically a combination of Agile and Waterfall basically working together to basically come to a full start to end in implementing a project. And the reason why I bring up the project management professional certification is that you would be very surprised to know that there are a large amount of technicians or those in the technical space that they know how to do the technical component, but when it comes to implementing something, they have a very difficult time because they do not understand the process. They know how to get the technical piece to work, but how do you get the business component of the project and the technical component of the project working together so that you can meet your stakeholder goal? Second, you can also make sure that you're implementing within budget. And third, making sure that you are meeting a scheduled deadline, okay? So let's look at just a couple highlights here. So PMI is basically expecting by 2027, they're going to be at least 88 million more project managers that are going to be needed. And one of the reasons for this is, as you know, after COVID, we started to see a lot of people just started to resign from their jobs. They've decided to, those that can retire early are going to go ahead and retire. So there's already an estimation that we're going to need more project managers. And additionally, what I want to say in regards to the need for more project managers, we're also going to find that we're going to have to take the project management skill set and basically intertwine it with basically what we're doing. So I'll give you an example of this. Over within the last 2 years or so, one of the things that we have been hearing about on the technical side is the need for cybersecurity professionals, right? But what is also occurring that most people do not realize is that they're also asking for project management professionals to also, that they want to be a project manager and they want to work on cybersecurity projects, they themselves also need a technical certification, such as your CompTIA Security Plus, such as your ISEC 2 involving CISSP, or your CISM, which is your Certified Information Security Management certification. Now they want project managers to understand basically the security background. So it's a twofold here. We're asking for technical individuals, get the backing of having a professional management certification, such as your PMP. And then on the flip side, you also having a technical side that is saying, hey, we want project managers that understand the technical component too. Another thing that is also that will occur is that the PMI Institute is already forecasting that at least 75% of the PMPs will come from India and China. So that says a lot. That tells you that there is a lot of value in the PMP certification, which is why I strongly encourage those, as we're here, as from the diaspora, we are encouraging those, whatever island you're from, whether it's from Jamaica, or you're from St. Lucia, wherever it may be, we are encouraging you to start to seek out these business certification, because they will be a big plus to how you move forward. So what else does the PMP offer? One, it's a people thing, right? It emphasizes your soft skills, okay? It emphasizes your soft skills that you're going to need to effectively lead a team, okay? And your simple soft skill can be, how do you communicate? Majority of the time as a project manager, 90% of the time is spent communicating. How do you communicate with your team members? How do you motivate your team members, right? How do you communicate, interact with your stakeholders, right? Because people skills goes a lot of weight, because that is going to determine whether a project goes forward or not, right? It also determines how do your communication process. Does your stakeholder like to receive emails? Does your stakeholder like to receive a daily update, right? So the communication process and dealing with people is very important. The second component to this is the process, right? And the process basically talks about reinforcing the technical aspects of successfully managing projects, right? So what that is basically saying is, okay, what are the process that I'm going to go through to basically manage this project? When I get to the initiate and start of this project, what I'm basically saying, okay, I bring everybody to the table. I scope the project out. I look at what the requirements are, right? Then I go to the planning process. I start to plan out everything that is needed. Do I need more bodies, more human resource bodies to help with the project? Do I need to outsource from vendors? You talk about my procurement process. How do I procure all the information that I need, the supplies and so forth? So it helps you to build a process. Then the next component of it is, okay, the implementation. I've done the initiating, gathered all my information, I've planned it. Now my purpose now is to implement. I start the process of implementing. And as I'm implementing this project, part of my job is to monitor to make sure that everything is going well. I look at quality controls. I look at what risk may occur, right? And I'm making sure that I'm managing my time. Am I on time to close this project? Am I meeting the needs or the requirements of my stakeholder? Then also, am I staying under budget? Am I going over budget? Are there any regulatory requirements that I may need to look at that may stop this project from going forward, or may halt the project, or may change the entire direction of the project, right? And then how do I basically close that project out? And a part of that process also is, how do I take everything and just make it one, business and technical? Then the next component I have to think about is the business environment, which I've been saying from before, is how do you connect the project and the organization's strategic goal? At the end of the day, is this project that I'm implementing, or we're going to decide to implement, is going to meet the organizational goal? There have been times that I've been in projects where a piece of software has been presented, and after understanding what the strategic goal of the organization is, I've turned around and said, I don't think that's the right software. From a business perspective, I was able to explain it, how the application work, how does it work within our workflow, how does it changes the infrastructure, what are the return on investment is. So not only did I have the technical aspect to basically go through the application, but I also combined that with the business aspect to basically see whether or not this application is going to meet the organizational goal. Understanding the organizational goal also helps you to basically conduct feasibility studies. You can conduct a study before you move forward with the technical component, saying, okay, this is going to work, this is not going to work, or we tested it out, we piloted it, and it did work. So at the end of the day, what you basically want to do is people, process, and business. How does all of that come together from a technical perspective, from a business perspective, and making sure that you reach your entire organizational goal? Before I move forward to the next component, do I have any questions out there, Larklin? If you could just let me know if there are any questions before I move forward.
Hi, Antoinette, going well. No questions so far, but I'll keep monitoring.
Thank you, thank you. All right, so the next component that we will be discussing is called the ITEL Foundation. And it's very interesting with the ITEL component is that not many individuals are familiar with the ITEL component. And the ITEL component is one of those things, if you manage a service desk, such as help desk or any IT department or anything like that, this is a good certification to have. Because this component talks about how do you provide service and how do you take service and basically improve your customer service from a service perspective, okay? So the ITEL is a part of the IT service management framework, and its primary focus is on the operation model of an IT department or any type of service desk, okay? And the primary goal of this is basically to focus on product and service, okay? All of us, it doesn't matter which area we're in, if you're working from a service desk, from a help desk perspective, your product basically is you're providing some type of service, right? You are providing a service to ensure that your organization stays operational from a technical component. Something as simple as someone calling to say, my computer is not working, right? How do you provide excellent service to that individual? What another component that it does is it basically streamlines your delivery of services, continuous improvement, and creation, right? So when we talk of delivery of service, think about the individual that answers your help desk or your service desk, right? You want to make sure that that individual is answering, is going to provide your customers with excellent service, okay? And that excellent service could look like, how quickly they picked up the help desk phone when it called in, how quickly they serviced the individual, how quickly they were able to respond to that person and fix their issue. In the process of doing that, you start to gather data, okay? And you gather data. In gathering the data, you're basically looking at key performance improvements, which we call KPI. And the things that you're looking at is, how long did it take for the individual to answer the phone? Did it take 7 rings before someone picked up the phone? Did the individual stay, did the help desk technician stay on the service, on the line with the person for 30 minutes, 40 minutes, right? You want to investigate those to say, how do you improve those services? You may say 45 minutes is too long. You may want to say 20 minutes on the phone with an individual should be suffice, meaning that that technician has to improve their skill set in how quickly they can basically go about in fixing an issue. A part of the ITL functionality, when we put all of this together, what it does is it drives growth and innovation, okay? It drives growth and innovation. When you're driving growth and innovation, what it also do is help your organization to implement processes that will help to basically mitigate any type of risk that you may have in your environment, manage any type of risk that you have. And additionally to that, you find ways to improve your services. So an example of an innovation could be, is that you decide that you want to grow, right? And within, for your organization, this may be considered innovation. You decide to introduce artificial intelligence in your environment. And what that may look like is, you may not have a technician necessarily sit and answer a phone. You may have an artificial intelligence, such as something as a bot, that may answer the phone, attempt to resolve the person issue. And if the bot decides to be, the bot is able to resolve the individual's issue as quickly as possible, that may free up that technician to move on to other things. But if the bot has not resolved that problem, then now it's moved on to the technician, and the technician can take a deeper dive. So the 45 minutes that a technician would have spent with a customer, the bot would have spent that time with the customer, leaving 45 more minutes for that individual to do something. The next thing that take into factor when you're working with the ITL certification, it helps to minimize disruption. We talk about the whole process of how, mitigating and so forth. It helps to minimize disruption, right? So when you're implementing new processes and new procedure, the ITL is going to help you to walk through that process, right? How do I manage my incident management, right? How do I do change management? When I do change management, how do I implement something without causing too much disruption in my environment? How do I manage my service level agreements, right? So when you take all those things together and start to factor them in, you're helping to drive growth, drive innovation, minimize disruption. So it's not only just sitting at the help desk for a technician and saying, I'm just answering the phone. Now, when you understand how the ITL process works, you're kind of looking, okay, how do I improve this? How do I speed this process up? How do I figure out to a new employee is coming on? How do I onboard them as quickly as possible? Onboarding process may have taken 3 days, right? The whole process of the time when the actual information comes in to create the account, set up a new computer, apply all the profiles and stuff. You may look and say, you know what, there's an easier way to do this. Now I'm going to take my technical skills with this. Now I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to add the business element to it, because what I'm going to do now is within that, it takes me 3 days to onboard a person. I'm going to calculate within that 3 days, how much time am I spending to get information onboarding? How much money am I spending? So those are the factors that you typically have to, take into account when we talk about the ITL component. And as I mentioned, the ITL component primarily helps with your service desk operation, right? You could take a little bit deeper dive. We could talk about how do you do continuum, okay? How do you maintain your business functionality in the midst of a crisis? How do you keep your help desk operational if there is a disaster, if there is an outage? How do you manage those components? So the ITL is a good framework to implementing processes. So let's take a swing back on this. Let's say this was an outage, right? You have an outage. How would your IT department, what process do you have in place in how your IT department is going to manage the outage, field the calls that are coming in, and it depends on what type of outage you have. Let's say it could be an internet outage, right? So there's a possibility that you may have a process in place where you have X amount of people that are, required to take care of dealing with the outage. You also have a group that is going to field in any calls that are coming in, or how you determine to get any support. How do you communicate back out with the employees saying this is what's going on? If you're working in an environment which requires you to be operational 24 hours, meaning that, let's say that you are in a healthcare facility, right? Healthcare facilities cannot be down too long, especially when you're managing patients. How do you make sure that your things that are critical stays functional, right? So it's not just the technical component you have to think is, how do you keep your organization operating from a business perspective? So the next component that I would like to address, and I believe this certification is one of the ones that I say truly deals with, in my own opinion, in how you manage process, right? And the Lean Six Sigma component, this kind of started out back in the 1940s. This kind of had to do with the manufacturing businesses. And before we tied back in the whole Lean Six Sigma component, it started off basically as lean, right? And the overall goal of lean was basically developing manufacturing process, okay? And the overall goal was to, how do you eliminate waste and conduct process improvement? And then additionally to that, if you took the Six Sigma piece to it, the Six Sigma piece basically had to do with quality improvement. So when you put both of those together, the Lean Six Sigma is a combination of lean and Six Sigma. And the whole idea of lean was basically to streamline manufacturing process. Six Sigma had to do with quality improvement in regard to defects. When you put all those two together, we basically are saying, now, how do you help organizations or help your organization improve in process? And basically, how do you reduce waste? Okay, so one, the Lean Six Sigma process helps you to improve the customer experience, right? And when we talk about the customer experience, we're talking about, if it takes me 20 clicks in an application to get to the end results, how do I go from 20 clicks to 10 clicks, basically, right? So it's, how do you improve that process? You may have a customer that comes to you and say, man, just for me to go from A to Z, I have to click on 20 different 20 different processes just to get there, right? So you want to basically improve that experience, right? Then the next thing that you want to do with Lean Six Sigma is the organization ability to reduce cost and to reduce and remove waste, okay? So what are you doing that may be costing the organization X amount of dollars, right? It could be something simple as you hire a part-timer to do data entry for you, right? In some sense, that's a cost, right? Because now you have to pay that individual to do that data entry. Then part of it now, it's a waste. Let's think about the time that the individual may say, well, I'm spending 6 hours in doing that data entry. But when you kind of dig into it and look into it, now you realize it's not taking the individual 6 hours. It's taking the individual technically 12 hours, 4 hours, depending on how you look at it. So when we talk about identifying reducing costs and waste removal, we're saying, how do we improve that process? That process may now become, how do you, from a technical perspective, now automate the data entry? You may not need a body for that, right? So as the technical person, you may say, hey, hold up, you know what? I can write a script, right? A script that is going to make sure the information from the data gets moved to X, Y, and Z. Now you have reduced some costs for the organization. The organization may not be spending, let's say, $20,000 a year for someone to do data entry, right? That $20,000 may now go to put for something else. You think about waste, 6 hours doing data entry, that is 6 hours that now you have cut off on time. So you kind of have to think about it this way. You have the technical component, the business component. How am I using my technical side to basically increase business? How am I helping the organization to lower costs, to remove waste? Additionally, it helps to increase organizations' capacity, right? So you want to make sure that the organization is working and functioning at full capacity. Lastly, it also allows employees to be a part of the process and the development. This is one of the reasons why I truly love the Lean Six Sigma process, is because when you're doing process improvement, it allows every worker, no matter what aspect of the job they work, it allows them to allow you to come together with every individual, from the technician to the person that may be doing your AR, to the person that may be doing your scheduling, the person that may be answering the door. You put everybody in a room together, and what you basically start to do, okay, here is the issue, right? It is taking X, Y, and Z for this to occur. And what happens is that everybody has the ability to share their thoughts, to share their idea, and it helps you to begin to map out what the process is. We call that the current state, right? We call it the current state. When you map that process out, this is what the current state looks like, right? Now you look at the current state, and from a business perspective, you know that there's some type of cost, waste that is occurring. You know the process needs to improve. And from there, you can work with everybody to basically come up with what we call a future state. And what the future state says, okay, this is how the process should look like. Then from a technical perspective, because now you understand the workflow, you have the business process down, you understand what's occurring in the business, you know what A does, you know what B does. You could take all of that now, and from a technical perspective, saying, okay, how do I get this process to work? How do I get all of this to work? And I remember the first time I experienced this was when I had the opportunity, when I started doing the Lean Six Sigma and going through the process and being certified and working on a Lean Six Sigma project. And I remember sitting in a room with different people. These were different people that worked in different components of the job, and we were looking to improve one of the processes that we have. And it was such an enlightenment from a technical perspective as the individuals are going through, this is what my day-to-day work looks like. And they're listing it out and saying, okay, when I do X, I have to do this, I got to do this. And some of the processes took 15, 20 steps. And I'm saying to myself, well, why are we taking 15, 20 steps to do something, right? And then be able to take that information now and look at the application that we were using and saying, okay, I know the application can do this. It's a possibility now. I need to have the application enhanced to probably cut down a step here, to cut down a step there, put this process in place. So because I understood the business need of what was needed, then I was able to apply it on the application side. The good part of this also, from a technical perspective, it helps to create a bond with the team and the different organizations that you're working with. Now today, when something needs to change, now it's not just overstepping and saying we need this to be done, like now you need to figure it out. Now it's a conversation where we all come to the table and say, well, Antoinette, this is occurring, this is the process, we need to figure out how to do this. So now it becomes a working relationship. Now it helps to develop the other people because now they know how the system works. They have an idea what to do. Now on my end, I understand how the business process works. And now when I have an idea that when I go back to the software vendor, I could say, okay, this is this, this is that. How do we get it to work all together? All right. So the great part about the Lean Six Sigma process, it helps you in utilizing different techniques, workflow maps, and so forth, that you could put them all together to help create a process that can be improved. Before I move forward on the last segment, Larkin, do we have any questions out there before I move forward?
Antoinette, no questions yet, but I have a question for you.
Yes.
Maybe you can touch on it later. In terms of entry requirements, in terms of completing each of these certification, maybe you can touch on that in terms of how much experience you need, how much training, that kind of stuff, right?
Okay, I will answer that question right after we talk about the change management process. Okay,
sure.
So the change management process now, I will definitely say this is something that is becoming actually extremely important today. In the past, when we talked about change management, we focused more on the theory component. When we talked about change management from the technical side, when we know change management as you want a new system needs to go in, or you need to make a change in the environment, you write up basically a change management form, say this is what you're going to implement, this is the impact of the changes that are going to be made, and so forth. But change management now is taken from a business perspective, a whole new reality. And that reality is changing due to the fact, as I say early on, we are dealing in an environment today that has rapid changes, right? We are implementing new technology in such a fast pace that some organizations, you need individuals to say, hey, if you don't make this change, you're going to be left behind. We are having individuals saying, looking at, okay, if you make this change, these are your business, the business impact, right? So it always goes back when you're implementing something, how do you manage change in general? Okay, so what is change management? So change management theory is basically a framework, and various processes are used to mobilize people, processes, resources to achieve a positive outcome. That is the overall goal, to achieve a positive outcome, okay? The other component with change management is that it helps organizations determine their short and long-term decisions that can move an organization forward. So what I mean by that is that when an organization is making a strategic decision, they're looking at all aspects of that change. And they're saying, is it something that I can do within the next 6 months? Is it something that I could do within the next 5 years? Or is it something that I can do right now? And you're saying to yourself, how does technology play a part in this? If you have an organization that is dependent on how you service your customers, and your customers are saying, listen, I want to be able to make a payment now and do not have to basically write a check. This is just something simple. I don't want to write a check anymore. I want to be able to go onto your website and able to make a payment, right? You may look at the numbers, the organization may look at the numbers and say, listen, based upon the surveys and based upon what we're seeing, we're losing customers because customers think it's too much hassle to write a check. They're finding another organization that does the same business as us, but the only plus is that they can make online payment. How do you, from a technical perspective, have the ability at this point now to go ahead and to help your organization make that change in implementing online payment? And it's not just about implementing online payment. How can you implement that online payment so it's way better than what your competitor is doing? Second, the change management process is a top-down approach, okay? Because what the change management process does, it also requires you, not you in essence, but your primary leaders to come down to your service line staff and say, help me make a decision in how we change the process. Because guess what? It is the service line staff that is at the forefront. Even you as a technician is also at the forefront. You know what your internal customers, meaning that the individuals that work with you, the person that works in sales, may be coming to you and say, hey, it's taken too long for this transaction to process. It's taken X amount of time, right? So coming down to the service line section will help those individuals that need to make critical decisions, make the critical decisions. But at the same time, you are also understanding from a business perspective why these changes are being made, how the changes are going to be made, how you also can help to make those changes also. Then the last thing that I want to mention about change management is change management. Key stakeholders, when key stakeholders are not involved, the change process can be difficult. And that includes you. If you, the technician, do not understand the change process, you can make that transition difficult. If the other line workers do not understand that process, it can be difficult. Because you could be saying to yourself, well, why are we doing this change? Why we need this change? When you understand what is occurring in your industry, you will know why these changes need to be made. It is expected that between 2018, from 2018 and up to 2028, there's expected to be 11% growth in the context of change management. There are actually jobs out there today. You could just simply do a Google search. There are jobs today that are titled change management directors. There are now individuals who are being hired to help to foster change within their organization. So I want you to take the whole idea of change management outside of the context of what we know it from the technical perspective is how do we make change? How do I make a technical change? But understand that there is a change management process that also requires you to understand why the business change is occurring. Okay. All right. So I'm going to stop here. Larklyn, I know you asked earlier in regards to what are, some of the certifications. How do we go about in getting the certifications, right? I just want to make sure I have your question correct.
Yes, I think the question is around the entry requirements in terms of getting the certification, how you go about getting the training, that kind of stuff, those two things.
Okay, so to basically answer some of that question for you. So the PMI, and I actually should share my screen back out so I could just give a little more context to the PMI itself. So the project management certification is actually in two components, okay? You have the certified, the CAMP, which is the CAPM, which is your entry level certification. And that entry level certification typically requires you to have either one, you could do it a couple of ways, is one, you can take a class, which will give you about your 35-hour contact hours that are needed. Along with that, I always encourage everyone to make sure that anything that resembles a project, to make sure you keep basically a log of those projects, right? Then second, the next thing that you have to do is making sure you apply for the PMP or the CAM, okay? So the best way to do this, PMI.org is where you would go for the PMP certification or the Certified Associate Project Management. That exams are typically 200 questions. 175 of those questions are legitimate questions. And the next 25 questions are what they call sample questions, okay? That exam is a pass and fail exam. There's no numbers. It's not 65% to pass, 70% to pass. No, it's not like that. There are at least the three domains, which I mentioned: people, process, and business environment. Those are the three domains that they grade you by. So I would strongly encourage you to go to the PMI website, to PMI.org, and that is where you'll find the full description of how to get the PMP exam. One disclosure I want to make with the PMP exam: the PMP exam has to be maintained, okay? You hold that certification, and within a 3-year period, you have to make sure you renew that certification by what we call PDUs, as continuing education. If you allow that your continuing education to lapse and you don't do anything about it, you will have to retake the test itself. The next one is the Lean Six Sigma. The Lean Six Sigma really does not require anything difficult. You could go to anywhere from Lean Go Sigma, and I'm going to bring this up back on the screen in 1 minute. And with Lean Go Sigma, basically, there's different types of Lean Six Sigma certification. You have the white belt, you have the yellow belt, you have the green belt, and you have the master. Okay, so I am a Lean Six Sigma green belt. Okay, and typically with some companies, what they will allow you to do is basically attend a course. You attend the course, and at the end of it, you will take an exam, which you would typically have to pass an exam. Some will also require you basically to do what we call a project, basically on a process improvement project. So there's different places that you can go and do this. And what I'll do is we'll post this on the JD Tan website on those training courses that you could go to. Second, ITL is by Axielos, AXELOS. And they also have different, you have the version, ITL version 3, ITL version 4. Most people start off with the ITL version 3, version 4, which is the foundation level. And typically that all that requires basically is, taking a course, get your practice in, and basically taking the exam after. What I do want to mention to you, after you take the certification, the most important thing that you have to do is make sure that you are getting hands-on training, okay? And the way you could get hands-on training is by, if you have somebody at your job that is, certified as a project manager, that is certified as an ITL or anything like that, work with them to help you to improve your skills. Or another thing that you can do is do side gigs that will help you to practice and so forth. So you want to make sure that you're not just getting the certification, but you're also going about and doing the practice and so forth. Now, the change management certifications, there are different types of change management certifications. The one that I actually like the most is by the Association of Change Management Professional, okay? And those require you to have a bank of hours, basically, that you will need to have how many hours you have in change management. Also, additionally to that, taking a course. Once you have taken the course, then that will fulfill your need basically to go ahead and register for the exam. Did I get all those questions for you, Larklin?
Yes, I think so. I mean, one quick follow-up. I think you touched on the training stuff is around some of the options like online versus in-person, maybe are you going to share those links on the website, like some of the recommended providers?
Yes. So for example, let me just do this one more time again. So for example, training courses, as professionals, our pockets could take a little bit of a hit at times when it comes to trying to, get these courses, take these courses and so forth. I definitely, two ones that I do recommend to you, and you could typically find reasonable prices here. One is Udemy. Udemy has a slew of courses, from everything from your technical certs, anything to do with business analysis, anything to do with your business certs or anything like that. They have a slew of courses that you can take. Some of these courses typically that you pay $200, $300 for. Normally Udemy will have a great sale where you could get these courses for $9.99, $10, $13 in US. And you could basically take these courses, practice these courses. Coursera is another great company that you could also utilize also. The nice part about Coursera is that some of their courses can translate into, if you don't have a bachelor's degree, you want to get a bachelor's degree, it can translate into some of the colleges that are connected with Coursera and transferring those classes that you have also taken. The nice thing about it, when you do finish a Coursera course, you do get a valid certification, okay? You get a valid certification that you could show that you have been trained. But if you want the professional certifications, you definitely have to register to take the professional certifications. Any additional questions?
Nothing else, Antoinette. Yeah, I think we're good on questions.
All right. So again, I want to thank each and every one of you for joining us today. This is going to be, this is definitely going to be a continuation. We're going to be following up soon and discussing, basically talking about business technical certifications. What are the technical certifications out there that we are literally recommending that you start looking to have? So look for us around November for that Jaminar session. We do have another Jaminar session that's coming up in September in regards to automation through Cisco. So that's definitely going to be one that you definitely should not miss, and that information will be coming out as quickly as possible. So once again, I want to thank you all for joining us today, and we will definitely be posting the information on the jd10.org in regards to how can you get to some of these links and so forth. So have a pleasant day and hope to see you.